Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Public Practice Accountants Club, a space for leaders and emerging leaders in the accounting space to come together and connect over the unique challenges and opportunities faced by our industry. So be at the forefront of transformation in the industry, make some valuable connections, and hear some great conversations. And of course, the bonus is that we are a CPA discussion group, so you can earn your CPD points for tuning in. So our topic this morning is the inside scoop on outsourcing. But I'll quickly introduce myself because I can see we've got a couple of new people in the room and we might have some new people out there on LinkedIn listening to us as well. So my name is Linda Steffens. I am the accountant coach, author and speaker, and I particularly love to talk about the business of accounting, business advisory services and leadership in public practice. But what I particularly love about this show is we are live and ready to rock and roll this morning. So cultured, crafted content here. You hear us all in our glory with our ums and ahs, and of course the occasional very controversial topic that or saying that often my amazing co-host brings up. Kylie Baxter, good morning.
Good morning, Linda. Well, you've shocked and amazed me this morning because you've changed the intro, so I had to check that I was in the right room. But love the mixing it up. But that is pretty much the only scripted thing that happens in these rooms, which is lots of fun and games.
Yes.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kylie Baxter. I am the owner and operator of a public practice accounting firm here on the today very sunny Gold Coast. And yeah, I've been doing this for 20-something years and I still love it. And I love the conversations that we have in here, Linda, and also the connections that we're making. So if anyone in the room, I know there's a few new people or watching out there, would like to connect with us after, LinkedIn is the place to do that, please.
It most certainly is. And of course, for those of you who are watching the live stream and hanging around in our Clubhouse app, you will also notice there's another head at the top of the, up on the stage there with us. We have a special guest this morning, Nick Sinclair, founder of Toa Global. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me, Linda and Kylie. Super excited to be here and talk about offshoring, outsourcing and all things global teams.
Absolutely. So we're looking forward to that too. And of course, we'd love for you to post your questions, interact with us. That's what's great about this live show is that you can do that. So you can use your chat bubble if you are there in Clubhouse. If you are streaming out on LinkedIn, we can see your comments and we can post them as well. So please let us know if you want to ask something of any of us or want to take the conversation in any direction. We're up for the challenge. Okay, so let's get started. The inside scoop on outsourcing. So what do accounting firms say is their biggest challenge in 2023? Too much work, not enough time. There's not enough time to often maintain a work-life balance, let alone provide higher value ongoing advisory to clients, an area that I play a lot in. We're in the midst of a global talent squeeze, and that doesn't look like it's going to ease anytime soon. So where does outsourcing sit in all of this? Is it an opportunity, a threat? What kind of services can be outsourced? What shouldn't be outsourced? Okay, so I thought I'd just kick off with having a bit of a look at the too much work, not enough time. So there's only a few ways that we can really deal with that. And, I think the first one, you can certainly look at automation, technology. Are you getting the best out of your technology and being efficient? Here comes maybe the first controversial comment of the morning. You can sack some clients. A lot of accounting firms often have too many clients, maybe not the right clients. So that's something you could look at. You might need to look at your organizational structure and how you actually handle client work. Have we got the right people in the right jobs? So get more efficient. That's the other way you can look at that. But of course, what we're talking about this morning is outsourcing. So there is some what I'd say we call onshoring, you know, where we've got people that contract, work in the gig economy, all that's going on. But specifically this morning, we're talking about offshoring. So accountants around the world and global teams, as Nick let us in on this morning. So Kylie, where do you feel like we need to kick off with offshoring?
I think the first thing that we should do is talk about the history of it. You know, like offshoring is definitely not something new. And I think, you know, for me, look, I'm aging myself backwards in my head. So it feels like we've been talking about it for like 10 years or something like that. But I think it's been one of these things that have hung around. Some people did it a long time ago when it first became an option and opted out and haven't, you know, dipped their toe back in the water. Some people have just started now. So it would be great to know those stats, Nick, from you. Like, how long has this offshoring thing been around? You know, what are the stats about people that sort of took to it early and, you know, maybe didn't have the best experience for a lot of reasons, which I also want to talk about, the setup that we need to have here for offshoring to work successfully.
It's an interesting question, and look, we're in our 10th year of business, so 9.5 in. So we weren't the first people to start this. It was going probably 10, 20, 30 years prior to us. The thing of why it didn't really get I suppose, the cut through was a few things. It was really built for large corporates first.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't really small businesses, which most accounting firms are and bookkeeping firms are, so they didn't have access to it. The second part of it was the cloud. So when Xero first came out and people shifted to cloud, that's in essence when we started, and that's where we really started to see a big shift into building global teams. So I think, you know, it's interesting. There was the early adopters in the early phases. You've got the laggards now. Like it's something where more people are doing it than not doing it these days. But I think a lot of people got it wrong. I think a lot of people got it right. What it really does is it exposes where firms are either good or bad with managing people, because putting a distance and another culture into it exposes things where they think they're strong but they're actually not. So many people have failed, and often the outsourcing and offshoring and global teams providers get the rap for it, when the reality is it's actually the firms that don't know how to manage people in a way that can make it work effectively offshore. So I know that's a bit controversial, but we've seen the good, bad and the ugly. We've seen, you know, we've seen people do it well, we've seen people do it really poorly, and we've seen everything in between. So it's there's definitely a lot of shared experiences there.
Nick, you can come back anytime. You're right off on the controversial statements. So, you know, works with us. Sorry, Kylie, I interrupted.
No, I was going to say, I think that's so interesting, because that has been the experience that I've watched as well, as I've watched, you know, my colleagues try the offshoring outsourcing thing over the last few years. It's interesting to me that people that are still exceptionally paper-based, their clients aren't all on cloud, they only have in-office staff, give this a go and then wonder why it's not successful from the get-go. And my own observation has been it's really because they're not setting their whole team up for success. And that's something that I talk about a lot. You know, if you're going to have somebody, you know, based in the Philippines or based wherever working for you, or even based, you know, in the next state working for you, to set them up for success, they really need to have exactly the same experience as your staff sitting in the next office are. Otherwise, it's not an equal playing power, right?
Yeah, and I think in fairness, I think, you know, providers like us have come a long way over the 10 years. When we first started, we provided an office environment, a desk, computer, security, HR. But now, you know, we have a registered training organisation, so an RTA. We train them in certificates, diplomas. We are tied up with CPA Australia, we're the only training provider for CPA Australia in the Philippines. So we've also learned what accountants and bookkeepers are not great at and taken that away from them. So things like training, onboarding, the structure that's needed, building people strategy, capacity plans. You know, we used to be what we called it outsourcing. We basically provide desk, chair and an office. Yeah. Now we see ourselves as a talent solutions business. So we've evolved a long way. But the challenge we've got now is there's a lot more players that come into the market, and there are a lot that still just provide desk and share. In fact, some don't even do that. They go work from home. People look at costs. They don't understand the risk. They don't understand the country risks. They don't understand internet, typhoons. We're across 2 countries now. So people are now looking at, in some ways, around what's the cheapest option as opposed to how do I actually make this work as part of my long-term strategy. But, you know, we've come a long way, as well as the accounting and firms that used it have come a long way, and things have changed a lot over 10 years, which has been for the better.
Yeah, great. And I also just want to come back to that point, because when I'm working with practitioners, the point about people management, and even to what you, Kylie, said, that all employees need to have that same experience and be set up for success. It's an area that I know a lot of firms seek my advice on or help with around people management. So, you know, yeah, it's interesting when we saw outsourcing, you know, sort of come along, and I reckon it's been around for a long time. And like you said, there were those early adopters that some of them didn't have a really great experience, and some of them still aren't really having a great experience when they try it out. But understanding that your outsourced team member is a team member. They are like every other employee in your firm, and they require exactly the same resources, time, you know, training, onboarding, everything you were talking about there, as does an employee who is either onshore or in your office right there, you know, remote. We've got to navigate all these different things now, don't we? Remote, work from home, onshore, offshore, you know, there's a lot going on. But I do think, if I'm thinking about the business of accounting and organizational structure and people management, that's a really good thing to be thinking about as to how you do that and how you navigate that with people that aren't sitting right there in the office with you. It's tricky.
Okay. Yeah, Linda, I think you're 100% right. You know, really, when you try and grow your team, there are so many different options and ways to grow your team these days. But what Nick said about cost is so interesting. Nick, do you think that cost is the main reason people look to offshore, or do you think it's a resourcing issue?
Yeah, look, I think when we first started, it definitely was. I mean, we were part of that. You know, it's more around the cost arbitrage, but we very rarely talk about costs now. It's only when someone's considering us versus others and it comes down to costs. And it's like, well, are you building a long-term strategy, or you're more worried about saving money? I think the last 2 years has been interesting. COVID has definitely pushed people. I had a firm 2 weeks ago, a big firm in Melbourne, and I was having a chat to them. I said, look, why now? 3 years ago, you basically told us to get lost and told us quite blatantly, you'll never, ever, ever, ever outsource. And now you're here. I said, what's changed? And he goes, we don't want to do it, but we have to. There is no talent.
Yeah.
We want to be able to progress our local talent quicker, and the only way we can do that is if we have a global team so we can fast-track careers locally. He said, so we're reluctantly signing up because if it was our choice 5 years ago, we wouldn't be doing it. But I feel that, because the reality is talent is hard to find, and it's not only hard to find, it's people to retain talent. You need to progress them. The old way of, you know, come in, make coffee, do the filing, you'll be a partner in 15 years' time and you'll buy in at a substantial price. People now are around more like, how can I get there quicker? How can I do that in half the time? How can I accelerate my career? And firms need to start thinking that way, to go, how can I accelerate people's careers? Yes, they need to be technically competent, but we see so many people go out and set up their own firms that have only got 3 to 5 years, and guess what? They run pretty good practices. It's possible. So how do we accelerate our local careers, but then not be able to fill that gap with a global workforce?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, sort of over the years, we've heard this, well, I'll call it an excuse, but you can frame it also as a moral debate around keeping jobs in Australia, keeping jobs local, forwarding our local talent, exactly what you were just talking about there, Nick. And, you know, that I think for the most part that was, I'm a bit scared of outsourcing. I don't think I can handle it, so I'm going to throw this up as the excuse of why I don't outsource. But I think, you know, from that business of accounting, we've got to go where the resources are, a bit like your Melbourne firm, you know, and it absolutely helps us to give back to the Australian, New Zealand, our local accounting industry, wherever we are, because this is not a localized issue here. This is around the world. We're talking global here. And, you know, you can give back to that by bringing our graduates through and helping and training them while we're still getting all our work done and looking after our clients. So I think, to my mind, that, you know, outsourcing it's a good business decision, you know, and you need to have a look at it in your overall business strategy. And look, it may not be for everyone. That's wonderful, but I think we're starting to see the tide turn even more. Nick, is that what you're telling us? You're seeing more and more sort of come to the realization that this is something we have to consider here.
Definitely. I mean, the firms that were a hard no are now a yes. So you know, the last 2 years we've had more and more firms. But can I just touch on that graduate one, because I think that's an interesting one. And I often get frustrated when firms say, you know, how are the graduates going to come through? And it's normal, to be honest, the smaller firms saying that. And the thing is, and this is controversial, so tell me to shut up if you want me to.
Go for it.
The problem I have with that is that the small firms rely on the medium and big firms to do the graduate intakes.
Yeah.
Now, the medium and large firms are the ones that were early adopters with offshoring. They still have the same volume if they can recruit them into graduate programs. But what we have is a lot of the smaller firms, I call a small firm 50 team members less.
Okay.
They don't want, or they don't have the time to train people. So they typically don't get juniors, graduates, intermediates, because they don't have the time. And to be fair, some of them probably wouldn't know how to train them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's such a reliance on the bigger firms to bring people through. And because these bigger firms are all building global teams, the industry has turned around and blamed offshoring for the talent shortage of juniors coming through, when I believe it's an industry problem. Everyone should be contributing to growing the future generations, not just lumping on the big firms.
I 100% agree with you, Nick. I think that it is not the big firm's responsibility to train up our grads and then release them out into the market. We all have an equal responsibility for that. And as part of being in this industry, we really need to be helping these people and teaching them the way, because, you know, there are a lot of grads out there. Like, I live here in the Gold Coast, where there's 3 universities pumping, or 4 probably, pumping out accounting grads. Like, it's easy to find a grad. We have always been of that mindset, though, so we've always trained ourselves. But there's a lot out there just looking for any work. And the problem that we've got right now, and I think the reason why probably more people are going to offshoring, is not because they're hiring grad positions, but because they're hiring people that can actually get that, you know, intermediate to senior work done. What are you seeing in that space?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think the difference is when you're hiring a graduate in Australia, they're normally young, university, no real life experience, to you're hiring someone in the Philippines or South Africa. They've got 3 to 8 years of accounting experience. They're typically CPAs. They've got that maturity and experience. They just don't have the Australian part.
Yeah.
And the Australian part, relatively, globally, accounting is fairly similar. It's just the intricacies of each country, and it's really around what work you get them to do straight away. So it's a faster start. We typically say, you know, in the Philippines, it would take you 6 months for what a graduate would take you 2 years in Australia to get up to. So it's a lot shorter time frame, but I am a whole believer, and I have been since we started TOA, was you need to have a very clear people strategy, and global teams form part of it, but you need to be progressing people locally as well as globally. It's not one or the other. And I think that the problem is too many firms look at it as one or the other, as opposed to going, what's my overall strategy? What are the people I need within the business to help me run the business? And then what does that look like in 1, 3, 5 and 7 years? And we've had some clients that have come to us that put majority of their team in the Philippines, and guess what their blockage was? They had no seniors to review it, and they had no one to take over when they wanted a holiday.
Yeah.
So our recommendation to them, surprisingly, to a lot listening probably, is put people on locally, because it's a whole team structure. It's not just go offshore and save on cost and find lots of talent. It's part of the solution, and it is not the only solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nick is speaking our language.
Yes, sure is. We talk a whole lot about strategy and planning here, Nick. In almost every topic that we talk about communication, planning, looking ahead. And, you know, from somebody who is out helping accounting firms all the time, you know, that's what I see. And it just rots my socks when I see accounting firms just all of a sudden, I need a senior accountant. Well, where are they coming from? You know, if you haven't given back to the industry to bring through a graduate program yourself, even as a, you know, a smallish firm can handle one graduate every so often, you know, because we all have a part to play in this. It's our industry and it's important that we all give back. So I think, yeah, you're talking about the reliance on those larger firms to train graduates. I also think it's just a lack of planning. So, you know, that we haven't maybe looked forward and really realised what we need to have. But I like what you said too about our overall strategy for people, and then how onshoring local, how that all just clicks in, and how you make that work, because it's a mixture of both. And I think, you know, that's where we see very successful firms with outsourcing play, you know, that's where it works the best. So if we could maybe get down to some tin tacks around offshoring as well. You know, there's some services that work well, or work that works well as opposed to others, Nick, or is there not? I don't, you know, what's your opinion on that?
To be honest, I think any role that you've got in a firm in Australia or wherever you are, you could have globally. It comes back to what's the structure. I'll give you an example. We've got a firm in Colorado in the US. They have 15 managers. 8 of the managers are in the Philippines managing US workers.
Wow.
So Australian firms are no different. We've got a few that they've moved their team members from the Philippines to Australia. One of them was running a SMSF team in Australia of 10 people, and they were out of the Philippines. So I think it's more around, you can have any role, but again, those people didn't do that after 6 months.
No.
They'd been investing in the strategy for 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
I think when it comes back to it's what is the right work to be getting done there. And that's different for every firm. And some firms, they have their team members in the Philippines communicating like a normal bookkeeper or accountant would in Australia. Other firms, it's very much just the back-end processing. I think it comes back to, again, that people strategy of how do you want to grow and develop the team, and then what does it look like in 5 years? Because the danger is if you develop and grow your Philippines team only, and they all get up to manager and you know, partner level, but there's not that pathway, then you're going to be stuck in the Philippines with what a lot of firms in Australia are stuck with now, which is you've only got seniors and you don't have any of the bottom stuff, the intermediates, the juniors and grads coming through. So yeah, anyway, I've seen everything get done over there, to be honest. I've seen all types of work at all types of levels, and it's just a matter of time and training.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Roy's just posted a comment for us. He was just talking about regarding tax graduates, it should be recognised that we are losing many to corporate, which, yes, may very well be the case. I mean, that becomes a money salary issue, doesn't it? Or interesting work, or does that link back to the image problem that we talk about we have in public practice, and how that's a whole other topic. But, you know, yes, possibly, Roy, that's happening. But then again, how are we structuring our businesses? What work are we doing? How can we be financially successful so we can offer graduates, you know, a great career path through public practice? Again, I think that's an industry-wide thing, something we've all got to play a part in. I don't know what you think, Kylie.
I 100% agree. You know, Roy, you raise an excellent point, but it is what it is. We can't change that other than changing the, you know, image of accounting, or especially public practice in Australia. And we've all got a role to play in that as well. I think what we need to do is focus on the solutions, and definitely, you know, offshoring is one of them.
I think it goes beyond that. I think that a lot of it comes back to that speed to competency. I know firms that advertise, you know, we'll get you to a, you know, manager level in half the time. So what does that mean for me as a graduate? It means that my salary is going to accelerate at a quicker rate, which actually means I'm better being in the public practice than I am in corporate accounting. But I think that the industry is really bad, and you mentioned it, Linda, it's really bad about promoting. All you see on social media is accountants about how overworked we are and how this and how that. You never talk about the lifestyle that it can create, the profits of firms, the incomes of firms, the acceleration of careers. You know, I became a manager after 5 years. We don't celebrate any of that. We air our dirty laundry too much, in my opinion, as opposed to saying it's a brilliant career. It's a recession-proof career. In good times we're needed, in bad times we're needed. And the reality is you can earn a really good lifestyle or have a good lifestyle and really good money, but the impact you make is significant. You are changing small businesses around the world. Every day, whether you're working on financials or you're making an impact on a business. And I think that we don't celebrate the wonderful things the profession does. And to be honest, I think that, again, you tell me to be quiet, a lot of our industry is coming to the back end of their journey and they're probably angry and burnt out over 30, 40 years of it. And, you know, and a lot of the noise is coming from that as opposed to going, you know what, I've been in the profession for 30 years and it's given my family, my kids a great life. And I'm, you know, things have changed. It's time for me to move on, but I've had a great profession. You don't hear those wonderful stories of people that have made such an impact over such a long period of time.
Yeah, and look, that's something, you know, I am talking about all of the time, Nick. So again, you're right in my sphere of, I suppose, you know, what I want to get out there to accountants. I'm the same. I've been in accounting for 30 years and I've absolutely loved my career. And of course, it's had its ups and downs and, you know, things in it, but it's afforded me to be able to do what I want to do and do what I love doing every single day. And I celebrate the fact that I'm an accountant and particularly in public practice, and that ripple effect of impact across the world that we can actually have with what we do. We underestimate what we can do and the impact that we're having. We just think, oh, we're doing a tax return or we're doing this, we're doing that. But you're making a difference in that small to medium-sized business, the owners, their world. It means a lot to them. And yeah, you're right. I think we should start to look at some of those things and the great things that accounting brings and celebrate that. I don't think we celebrate enough. It comes back to a little bit to our nature and you know how we go about talking about what we do. So look, I think we're fighting the good fight here. You know, we're in it, and we certainly want to bring that to accounting. Kylie, have you got any comments around that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you guys, but I do think that we need to acknowledge that the new people coming into this industry have different needs and wants to what I'll say a collective we wanted when we were coming into the industry. You know, for myself, I was super career focused. It was really about, you know, making that difference, learning as much as I could, progressing as quickly as I could. I would say that is the complete opposite to people coming in now as a generalization. It's more of a balanced approach to their career, or even not the career. It's just this is what they have chosen to fund their lifestyle. And that is what we are coming up against as employers because A, there's a disconnect because we don't understand their mindset unless we really try and learn it. And B, that changes the expectations of what we need to have for those roles, how many staff we need to have. You know, not everybody wants to come in and work full time anymore.
No.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, Kylie. I 100% agree. And all now in the business is innovation and new products, and that freelancer part's an area that I'm really looking heavily in. America and others are leading the way in that. I think the reality will come though in 5 to 10 years is when these people that want to have that lifestyle can't fund the lifestyle. And the reality is they won't be able to, and we're going to have a huge amount of people leaving the industry. There will be a gap, and I think there will be a realignment at some point, but I think that the breakup of our team structure will no longer just be 100% of our workforce in our office in Australia. It's going to be a global environment. You're going to have, you know, call it 60, 70% locally. You're going to have 20 to 30% in a global workforce, and you're going to have 10 to 15% in my mind as freelance, scale up, scale down workers. So it's going to completely change the way we traditionally look at staffing and resourcing our businesses because it needs all three of those, not just one or the other.
And, you know, as a business owner, that's difficult to navigate, isn't it? You know, again, with the the amount of work that's on our plates and everything else we're dealing with, you know, and I know we talk about planning and strategy and all of that, but actually being, you know, really taking the time and looking at what that is and getting either help from the industry or tuning into what the industry is saying and listening to people about what we think is going to happen in the future and try to just even sit in that for a little while. Where does your mind take you? What's your business look like? What do you want to achieve? So get some help around that if that's something that you feel like you're not getting a chance to do. You know, and again, I'll just go back to the business of accounting. I think we need to be smarter business people and, you know, get away from seeing ourselves more as simply those technicians and becoming business owners and all that involved. So there's a lot that I think that we can learn there. Kylie, you were about to say something before.
Yes, I want to shift the conversation because it's half past and there's a lot to go through.
There is.
Nick, I want to ask 3 misconceptions are when people or public practice owners think about, you know, going into the offshoring mode.
Yeah, first one, security and risk. So I think that's the big one. And to be honest, there is security and risk for some of the providers that work remote only. They don't have any IT infrastructure over there. You are trusting that someone that brings their own computer at their house is going to be safe and secure. That is a major concern for me. But when you work with facilities where we've got our facilities, if you ever went into them, they are more secure than anything you would have ever walked into. They are serious corporate level of security. Even our remote teams, the amount of security we have on them and controls, we see everything that happens. They're just not sitting within our office, but they're part of our infrastructure of our office. And I think that's the key. So when you're finding a provider, make sure that they have infrastructure and a setup in the country where you're hiring someone. Yes, it might cost you a bit more because you have to pay that fee to the provider, but when your PI insurance doesn't pay a claim and that destroys your business, you know, that will be. So security and risk is always one of the big ones. Mm-hmm. We always get surprised with, you know, I didn't think they would be that good. That's typically the comment we hear after a couple of months, and it's like, well, what did you expect? So, you know, will they be able to do the work at the level that I need? Like, what's the quality is probably the question. And I think why that question gets asked is in the early days where you used to send a job and get a job. Traditional outsourcing, so you'd send a tax return to a company, they would process it on their servers and their systems and they would send it back to you. The workload varied, and there's still a lot of those providers, particularly in the self-managed super fund in Australia. A lot of companies do use those providers, and there are some brilliant ones. There's some ones that I would say are not so brilliant, and we highly recommend not to use them. But if I use a company like Seamless, for example, SMSF, they have a brilliant, I mean, Mike McHenry that owns it is the most process-orientated guy I've ever met. He is just like process. But because of that, he will only take on a certain amount of work so that he ensures that the quality is absolutely brilliant. But the problem where I was going down is that a lot of providers, when they get busier, they take on more work, they bring on more juniors like any other firm would have to. The quality drops, the timeframes drop. So the quality then became a big issue. And that was traditionally what the outsourcing was when it first started. So a lot of people had bad experience with quality and timeframes because those firms' success when they were growing so fast was their detriment also. So that quality one is, the quality is only as good as your processes and systems internally. They're probably the big two one. The taking jobs away from Australia. Look, you know, 99% of our clients have grown their local team members while they've been clients of ours. They make more money, which means they put more money back into the economy. It creates more jobs in Australia because firms grow. It doesn't take jobs away. I think they're the big 3 that I really see.
Off the back of that, Nick, and thinking about keeping, you know, jobs in Australia, that whole conversation, disclosure to clients, is that something that you assist firms to do or you know, school them a little bit on what to do there?
Yeah, look, every accounting standard that there is says you have to disclose it. There's no one to check that, but there is no reason to hide it. And we're big advocates about you are a progressive business that has a global team. The only time a client will be worried is if the quality of their work drops, the time frame to deliver their work drops, or there's a data breach. And if you have your systems, process and tech set up correctly, clients will embrace it. And this is the fun fact. Most of your clients are outsourcing. You just may not know it. Most of them will have global teams. Because it's the other industries that embrace this sooner than accounting. So we see a lot of, like I go to the Philippines, I go to South Africa, I walk around, I feel like I'm in Australia. Because there's that many Australian businesses, legal firms, you know, every type of business, Goodyear, you know, all the tyre places, all the different ones, they're all there. All the banks are there, Telstra's there, all the insurance companies are there. So it's just a matter of whether I mean, a lot of people haven't seen that, so they don't realise that.
And I think over the years, the other one I just want to touch on is this control of team members. I can't see them. I mean, I think we've probably moved on from that a little bit because we've got a whole lot of technology, not dissimilar to what we're doing this morning. You know, we're all in different places, you know, but still chatting and seeing each other. So, you know, that remote working situation has been around a little bit now. And, you know, the last couple of years with COVID and all of that has pushed us in that direction, which hasn't been a bad thing. So do you hear that as an objection, Nick, much anymore?
Yeah, I mean, we still do, but it's less now. I think firms have realised how to run global and remote teams because the pandemic forced us to. We didn't have a choice. Yeah. I think that, you know, Kylie, you touched on it right at the start. It's like putting someone in a room and closing the door and not, you know, talking to them, but hoping they'll be successful. I think firms have definitely got better at that. I think that there's still some way to go with some firms. I mean, I always say if you have an office in Melbourne and I'm on the Gold Coast like you, Kylie, it's like us never going to Melbourne to visit that team. If you've got a global team, you need to go and visit them and you need to bring them here. It's just an extension to your business. It has benefits. 7,500 of the best islands in the world are in the Philippines. South Africa's got some amazing places. But it's just an extension. So it's about how do you really build the culture and the people so that they want to be part of what you're doing in your purpose, in your vision, in your business. They're an extension to your team. They're not an outsourced person you send work to. They're a team member.
Yeah. Make a very good point.
And I do wonder how many businesses go into outsourcing, offshoring with that, I'm going to have to visit them, I'm going to have to bring here in mind. I would guess that it would be a low-level percentage. And I should also disclose, sorry, I should have done this at the beginning. So our setup for IQ is we have staff members in the office, we have staff members that work flexibly in the office and outside. We've got onshore staff members that work fully from home in completely different state than I'm in. And we do have one TOA employee, and I've just hired our second one. Apologies, everyone. Probably should have said that right at the beginning. But yeah, you know, I was one of those people that did try offshoring about 10 years ago. I won't say who it was with. It wasn't a great experience, and it wasn't for lack of trying, because really what that taught me was, hey, I can hire someone in Tasmania. I can hire someone in Melbourne. You know, really, we're completely set up for this. This is going to work for us. But the issue that we did have, and Nick said it exactly before, was quality. You know, we got this person that was supposed to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and they couldn't. And we had that repetitively. That happens here too. You hire someone that says they're a senior accountant, and it turns out really they're a pretty mid-level intermediate. It just happens, you know, and that's life. So we are back in the offshoring market simply because I'm finding it hard to get resources here. I've said it here really openly before. It is really hard to find staff. I think particularly due to our geographical location, we're a little bit more transient as well. You know, people come and go from the Gold Coast, which is difficult. And geez, like, let's not sugarcoat it. This industry has been super hard over the last few years. So I completely understand people who want to cut back or, you know, whatever the story is. So to be real about it, our TOA experience has been surprisingly great this time. We have found the, you know, candidate that we have got the quality. I'm surprised by the quality. So that was so funny that you said that.
Is that
Number 2 misconception. People are surprised. It's good. I'm one of them. Because I had low level expectations, mostly because of our experience in the past. That said, I wasn't price sensitive. I wasn't doing it, really for cost saving. I was doing it for, I need someone to help me get the work done, and try that experience. But the communication, everything about our experience this time has been exceptional, and I haven't really had anything to do with many of the toll people other than our staff member. But the way we do things is, I make a promise to every staff member that works here, regardless of where you are in the world, you will have the same experience as the 3. And I think that's probably, that's a team, right?
And I think then off the back of that, Kylie, it's do your research about, the organizations that you're thinking about using for outsourcing. This quality aspect's really, really important. So, I'm familiar with TOA and the training and education arm that you guys have, AB2, Nick, so I think that's wonderful. I think it also takes some of that burden away from accountants with some training. That's not to say you don't have to train them. You absolutely do. But, it certainly helps that skill level to come across. So please, everybody, if you're considering offshoring, make sure you're doing some research and use everything we've been talking about in this conversation to really hone in and ask those questions of the providers, because, that's going to make your experience hopefully lovely and surprising, like Kylie's has been. So, that would be wonderful. Look, we've just got another question from Roy. He said he's a bit nervous with an offshore employee or contractor having access to tax file numbers. I suppose that comes back to security and privacy, doesn't it, Nick?
Yeah, it does. It depends on the work they're doing, what access of information they have with you. I think that, it comes back to accountants are one of the highest professions in the industry across the world. They're one of the top 5 in the Philippines. I think once you understand the security protocols within the environments that we operate, I think that would quickly go. But, I hear that often, Roy, so I understand where you're at now, but it's probably, we can certainly talk through the measures in place with how we run things like our facilities, the, no phones in work areas, the security, the safety, all the things that would put your mind at ease, because, we've never had a breach in the Philippines at all, not with just us, but with BPOs on that side of it. It's not saying it couldn't happen, but there's certainly a ton of things in place that would stop that from ever happening.
Yeah.
So
is this where we give Practice Protect a big plug? Because I'm a big fan of theirs and we've used them for forever. So we've been using Practice Protect for years and years and years, and I know that you guys use it too, Nick. That basically allows you, Roy, the opportunity to lock down any staff member. Like for me, I'm concerned with any staff member having access to tax file numbers and passwords, not just offshore people. Right? So for me, regardless of where they are, Practice Protect allows you to check where they're using their laptop or their computer. It allows you to lock down for, out of work hours. It gives you a really detailed history of every app or, matter that they've accessed. Basically, that is this extra over layer of protection that really gives me peace of mind in that space. Be interesting to know if you're using it, Roy.
Yeah, and I think also too, the first thing I was going to say there is let's be concerned with our own security here for our own businesses. I think that's where often our systems will fall down, not the offshore where there's that heightened level of security because of the concerns that comes, with the industry. These providers have put a whole lot of money and technology and resources into that area for that very reason. So they're often well above where we are locally with regard to protecting, IT from cyber attack, all of that sort of thing. And monitored and watched, So, I think look at home as well. And I know we had a cybersecurity chat a while back. So if you wanted to go back and visit that, that would be something you could have a listen to. But Helen has also said the best thing we ever did. So her offshore staff are amazing, but she agrees 100% that they need training, they need support, and they are no different to a local staff member. So absolutely, I think that's one thing that's really come through the whole lot here, is setting everybody up for success, and it makes no difference where they are and how they're working. So I love, Kylie, what you said about that you promise every team member that same experience. So I think that's a really great thing to take on board. The one thing I'd like to just quickly talk about too, I know that in the offshoring industry, we've got different models of hiring or engaging with the supplier, I suppose, and their team members. So you will often see a direct team member, you know, where it's the same person. We might go into a pool of work where a number of offshore team members may work on our work. We may never know who they are. We may see a hybrid sort of version of those things where you may have some direct team member. You may also have a manager that's involved in there, you know, that is makes up a full-time equivalent for you. So there's different ways of doing that. What's TOA generally use, Nick? What's the model that you'll use?
Yeah, our model is really full-time dedicated team members. So that is where you hire someone for a specific role and then you put them on for that. I think all models, to be honest, fit within some firms. I mean, the send the work, get the work back is more of a short term. I've got capacity issues and need to get rid of some work now. The play, I suppose, where we work, or the solutions, is really what's your longer term people play? What's the strategy? How do you have and build a global team? But I honestly think you need to at some point use all solutions. It's just a matter of what your workload and capacity is. Because the amount of firms that I hear that are saying no to work because they don't have enough people. And I had one of our clients, to be honest, say that to me about a month ago. So we had to push some work away. And I said, well, why wouldn't you just go and use one of X, Y, and Z as a project? And he said, I didn't think you'd want that. And I'm like, well, no, it's not about what I want. It's about your business and what it needs and what's best for you. And to be honest, the project work approach for that client is go and use that provider that can do that project for you, and then start to resource your team, but you're not rushed to do it, and you're not going to take the client on and not be able to deliver. So I think it does fit. It's what's the strategy for the firm and how do you manage your workflow?
Again, that planning element, isn't it? So I know as we come up to the end of the financial year, Kylie and I will probably talk all things budgets and capacity and all of that sort of thing again. We'll do the merry-go-round on that. But, you know, it's planning, isn't it? It's looking ahead. It's not just getting buried in every single thing we've got to do every day. But again, coming back to that business owner mindset versus a technician mindset and looking at what you need to have. I love that idea. I didn't realise that you could just go, hey, I've got this project. I need a short-term or what I see is probably a short-term team member or resource, and can use it that way. Nick, interesting though, anybody that takes on these projects and sort of go, I'm short-term in the market here, do they often turn into a long-term situation anyway?
Oh, look, a lot of those clients do come back to us because they've built longer-term teams with us.
Yeah, right.
But they will use them if they... Like I've talked to many people, I said, look, you don't need us at the moment. You need to go and get that work done. Go to those providers. And some of them they like that concept of I can have 100 returns this year or I can have 5. And a lot more of those lifestyle businesses where they don't want to have necessarily a team, that model does fit better in that case.
Yeah.
I think the key thing, and you just mentioned it around planning, the reality is it takes 60 to 120 days to get a new team member. Yeah. So if you're wanting to solve your tax time problems in July, August, September, October, if you're not hiring in March, you're behind the game. So for me, it's, you know, and that's really what we're trying to talk to a lot in the industry about now is don't leave it until July. Whether you're hiring locally or globally, doesn't matter. Just you need to get ahead of the game. And March, April is the absolute latest you'd want to be basically going to market, because otherwise you're going to get the leftovers. Particularly locally, if you're recruiting, there's not a lot of accountants that will move in June. So get in there now while people are open to opportunities, because they know and they want to be committed to their employers that they'll work through that busy period.
Mm. What are you talking about, Nick? We're too
That's
busy
the
in March and
Mythbuster.
April to think about hiring. That's a crazy thing to say.
Accountants are always busy.
I
There's never
know.
a quiet time. You need to get over that and just run a business and go, we're always going to be
I
busy.
know.
What do we need?
I know.
And that was
Exactly.
tongue in cheek.
I understand. I have the same thing about new clients pop up this time of year too. The highest intake of new clients seeking accountants is March through to June, when accountants often, dealing, well, certainly here in Australia, dealing with their lodgement deadlines and targets and things like that. So I have a bit of a beef about that I take around, carry on my shoulders all of the time. Okay, we're getting close to the top of the hour. So I just want to talk a little bit about the future of outsourcing and AI and tech. Where are we going with this, Nick? Where do you see outsourcing going or offshoring going?
Look, I think it'll continue to evolve. We've certainly seen in the last 2 to 3 years a lot of the roles that we would never have heard of, data analytics, all those sorts of roles, data scientists. We're starting to get a different type of role coming through. So I think that, like the industry, the outsourcing will evolve. I think that at the end of the day, accounting will always need people. We're a service business. We're a human business. We will always be relationship driven. So there will always be a need for people. But I look back now and go at the bookkeeping work that we used to do 10 years ago and look at what we do now. It's very different.
Yeah.
But do we need any less people? I would argue we need more now. So I think technology refines and improves the way that we do work and the relationship we have with client and the instantaneous need. I think the reality of tech and the visibility of it is that accounting firms will need more offshore team members running not just an Australian shift, but running an off shift so that you can be working. If work comes in this afternoon, you can have it back to the client tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of, we call it following the sun. And a big shift that we're doing is, we used to be a Philippines outsourcing company.
Yeah.
We now business. We offer people through South Africa, through the Philippines. We're looking at South and Central America, India. There's a range of other reasons. So ultimately, I think a lot of outsourcing providers like us will shift to be, we will help you get the best talent no matter where it is, even locally. So that's something that we will be launching later this year, is even local support. So I think the industry will evolve. I don't think the roles will ever go away. I think technology enables and helps, but it will never take away an accountant.
No, I agree. And I've seen a couple of things come out of the US where they're using some great AI around bookkeeping, but they're putting the offshoring resource around that too. So, we're starting to see then data come to the accountant, at an appropriate level where the accountant and qualified accountant applies the tax adjustments to it. They're not worrying about doing that bookkeeping and that coding. So that's making our businesses more efficient. So I think, we're seeing combinations and hybrids of all these different things coming together, which is very exciting.
Can I give you one quick example within our firm?
Yeah.
So we've got a data scientist team and a data team.
Yeah.
That was a team that we never had 3 years ago. Our data scientists now can predict up with 96% accuracy the people that will leave us in the next 12 months.
Wow.
So we ran a model over the last 2 years of who would leave based on these criteria, and it predicted 96% accurate. So I think, what does that mean? Well, no,
Good old
we can
data.
help clients, but it's around engagement. It's around, are they up to date with the training? Are they turning up? Are they having sick days?
Yeah.
All of these things will help us to help our clients, but it's a prime example of businesses that have just a different need. Those data scientists are all accountants. Yeah. They're just a different type.
Yeah.
So I think that the industry will evolve, businesses will evolve, and we'll just have more different roles. And, I see it as being more exciting, to be honest.
I do too. And I've always seen it that way. There's so much opportunity. Some things will go by the wayside, but what's new? There's always going to be something new. I think we've just got to be open to that as well. Kylie, anything to wrap up from you, or anything that you wanted to get out there and ask?
Yeah, I did some homework this week, Linda. Don't fall over in shock. And I asked people the questions that they would like to ask Nick. Many of them have been covered, but the number one burning question, Nick, is how much can people expect to pay for a senior accountant?
So typically around 30,000 Australian would get you a senior person. So you can get some cheaper, you can get some more expensive, but around that around that mark is roughly what the average is with ours. We benchmark all 3,500 of our team members, so we know exactly where they should be at what level. But yeah, that 30 odd is probably the rounded up cost.
And what sort of experience would they have at that level?
There are no unicorns, and I know that other providers are selling. There's people with 5 to 10 years of Australian experience. It doesn't exist. We're the largest provider in the Philippines. If you put all of our competitors together, we're still bigger than all of them combined. So the talent pool of tens of thousands of trained accountants in the Philippines does not exist.
Yeah.
So what you would get is someone with, 3 to 7 years of Philippines experience, and then they need to be trained on the Australian. If you're playing the game of taking someone that's worked for another client for 5 years, they're not going to be at the level that you think. And we've seen some of the salaries you're paying are close to Australian salaries, which is ridiculous. So I think you would get someone with a great experience, but remember, you're getting the cost arbitrage because it's a different country. If you want someone in Australia for 70% cheaper, you're not going to find them. You're not going to find them there either.
Yeah, yeah. And so something
Perfect.
with your training too, Nick, is that able to help with that Australian tax experience or knowledge?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do what we call an accelerator program now, which is a 7-week program which trains them the practical and the theory. We've just about to launch a 4-week bookkeeper bootcamp training and a 5-week SMSF training as well. So you give them that theory and practical experience. So when they start with a client, they've actually got that experience.
Yeah, great. Okay, good. Kylie, were they any more burning questions?
We literally ticked them off very well as we went through. So they were the last questions.
Yay, well done us. Okay, last chance, everybody out there in Clubhouse and listening to our stream. If you've got a question, post it now. Or, of course, as Kylie said right at the top, if you want to connect really with any of us here today, LinkedIn's probably the place. Nick, is that okay with you, or somewhere else that they can find you?
LinkedIn's the place where I hang out the most.
Yeah, it's my preferred one as well. All right. So, look, thank you so much, Nick. We know you're a very busy man, and we appreciate you coming and talking to us this morning. I've loved our chat, and I think that everybody that's listening in and those that will listen to the stream maybe later on will get a lot out of it. So thank you so much for the time and for everything you do for our industry. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And congratulations on your business success too. It looks amazing.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you for everything you're both doing for the industry. And so I appreciate both of you. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Kylie, anything to wrap up for everybody?
No. Look, personal perspective, like I said, during the conversation, we have tried offshoring recently. It's been a great success for our business. So if you are having, resource issues, capacity issues, please don't disregard this as an option. It is an solution opportunity. So just some food for thought there.
Yeah. And I think too, the biggest takeaway for me was, do your research, take some time, have a look, plan, look into the future, what you think you might need, and really sit down and just take some time around putting that in place. I think you'll get just a much better result if you do that. So the Public Practice Accountants Club, as you will all remember, is now a monthly event. So we're on the first Wednesday of the month. So make sure you pop that in your calendars. We're live here every month. So next month, Wednesday, 5th of April, gosh, this year is flying. It's crazy. 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're going to chat about what's best for your firm, managing SMSFs in-house or an outsourcing model. So off the back of this one, we know that the management and being able to do the work of self-managed super funds and what's happened probably over the last 5 to 10 years in that area has been, a challenge that we're also finding our firms navigating. So that's something we want to talk about too. We've got a couple of special guests coming along for that as well. So we'll get both sides of the coin there, and we'll see where we land. So that'll be very cool.
And also between now and then, both Linda and I are going to be at ABE in Melbourne in a couple of weeks, and I'll also be at Accountex. So if you are there and want to connect, please reach out to us.
Absolutely. We're scaling up for that, having a lot of fun getting all our promotional gear ready. And, you know, you want to look out for, we've got some cool slinkies. So come see us, you know, if you want a cool slinky, they're going to be the promo thing of the Accounting Business Expo in Melbourne. All right. Okay. So thanks, everybody. Have an amazing month. Hope you all have a great day. And thanks, everyone, for your time. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.